Tyler, we have to obviously start with the rookie quarterbacks. What are you looking forward to most with seeing these two square off?
Well, I mean, if it's anything like what we saw earlier in the season when the #1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, went up against the #2 overall Jaden Daniels, we're in for quite the matchup. Game ended with a miraculous Hail Mary. I don't know if we'll get one of those, but the Patriots have been showing those late game heroics, so you never know. But ultimately, I think it's going to be really fascinating because we were looking at these quarterbacks under the microscope all offseason leading up to the NFL draft, and now we get to kind of take it off the page and off the college tape and now look at it directly side by side in the NFL. And, Daniels is kind of a different case, but Caleb Williams and Drake Maye are in very similar situations in my estimation. And so, kind of seeing how both of those teams react to coming off losses in the previous week and how both of those quarterbacks respond and continue to develop is going to be an intriguing storyline for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. Let's start with the Drake Maye side of things. So overall, 770 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks. There was a fumble last game as well, but we also saw some really nice plays from Drake Maye, including that last-second throw to Ramondre Stevenson where he bought so much time. What's the right objective take on Drake Maye and the way he's performed so far in his NFL career?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's kind of the same take that I had at the beginning of the season when you and I were talking about whether or not Drake Maye should play or not. And really, it's that Drake Maye is ready for the NFL. Drake Maye is ready to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I just don't think, and I think we're kind of realizing now that the Patriots aren't necessarily built up around him to cultivate a young quarterback at the moment. Now, he's out there and he's playing, and, he's playing at a high level at times. You're seeing those flashes, but to really see what this overall, next generation of Patriots football is going to look like with him under center, they just have to get the roster better. And that's a conversation for 2025 and beyond. But from what we've seen right now, it's hard not to get excited to say, you know what? This is the hardest position to get right in the NFL, especially when we're talking about a draft where there were 3 quarterbacks and you were kind of sitting there left with the third option. It seems like you got a good one. Again, it's only a few starts into his career, but overall, it's hard not to like what we've seen from Drake Maye, especially given the circumstances of the line, the receivers, and the overall roster.
Yeah, he's the shining light right now in what has been a little bit of a dark season, but of course expected coming into the year. The Pats 2-7 coming into this game, and right now in pole position for the #1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. As for the Bears, Tyler, 4-4 coming into this matchup. They've lost a couple in a row, and the offense has been a little bit lost. The Bears actually ranked 29th out of 32 teams in terms of passing yards in the NFL. How has Caleb Williams lived up to the hype that obviously comes with being the #1 pick in the draft?
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to watch this offense because we're already kind of seeing Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, somewhat on the hot seat. Already Matt Eberflus already being asked if they're going to switch play callers and things of that nature. So always interesting to kind of follow that as we go into this game. Possibly, if things don't go well for this Chicago Bears offense, maybe there's a move there. But specifically with Williams, it's very similar to Maye. I actually think it's really going to be interesting to watch these quarterbacks because they're in such similar situations where, obviously the Bears wide receiver room is a lot more talented than New England's. But one thing that's really similar is the line. There's been a lot of issues with the Chicago Bears team, and he's had to deal with that. Now, in dealing with all of that, similar to Maye, he's flashed. I mean, go back to a couple of weeks ago where the Bears were in London against the Jaguars. He threw 4 touchdowns. He looked awesome in that game. Things were really starting to really blossom for Caleb Williams, looking like that #1 overall pick. And there have been moments where, he got a lot of Patrick Mahomes comparisons leading up to the draft. And I don't think that we should really put any quarterback in that realm at this juncture, but you do kind of see it just in the way that they play. They're able to extend plays, have mobility to extend the pass. It's not necessarily, he's Jaden Daniels having design runs or anything like that, but it's moving around to then throw the football, and you're seeing some really impressive throws. So again, it hasn't been pretty at times this season. They've really struggled on third down the last few weeks in particular. I think that's what's contributed a lot to their losing streak. But overall, you are seeing the flashes of Caleb Williams and why he was the #1 overall pick.
And you did mention the offensive line. and that is a part of the story here for the Bears. But I do think a lot of people came into this year, and as it's related to the situation that Caleb Williams came into with the Bears, everyone was saying this is an ideal situation because you're going to have DJ Moore, you're going to have a first-round pick in Rome Odunze, you're going to have Keenan Allen, who isn't in his prime anymore, but at one point was the number one wide receiver. Why do you think it has been maybe a little bit disappointing to watch this offense play? Is it the offensive line? Do you put most of it on that specifically? Or have there been more growing pains with Caleb Williams than you might have expected?
Well, I think that we need to realize that what Jaden Daniels and even going back a year ago, CJ Stroud, both actually number 2 overall picks, what they have done and are doing are not the norm. That is the outlier for all of this. The fact that CJ Stroud was able to come in and just be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL last season as a rookie, and the same thing with Jaden Daniels this season, that's not the norm. The norm is kind of what you're seeing with the Patriots and what you're seeing with Caleb Williams, where they're not on great football teams and you're not seeing a week in and week out consistently great play, but you're seeing moments of what it could look like down the road. And so for Caleb Williams, yes, I think some of it is the offensive line. Certainly, it's, again, similar to New England, where you look at the pressure rates in the NFL and the most pressures allowed, New England's at the bottom of the league, and so Chicago, both of them in the bottom 10 or the top 10 of the highest pressures allowed in the league. And so that's certainly going to hurt a quarterback's consistency. I think that that's the number one thing that we're looking for from Caleb Williams and from Drake Maye. And while there is talent at the wide receiver position, there's no denying that DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, who had 100 yards last week, and Keenan Allen, who has historically been one of the better possession receivers in the NFL, on paper, that looks great. But if they don't have time to get them the football, or things are sped up for them and they can't really even process where they are on the field, it's kind of not surprising to see that things a little bit disjointed with the Chicago offense.
All right, so if you had to do a redraft of the NFL draft as it's related to the quarterbacks specifically, how would you redraft those top quarterbacks?
Well, I think if we go from what we've seen so far, I don't know how you don't say that Jaden Daniels is number one, right? I mean, like, he's just been that awesome. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. It's not even, just take the rookie label off of it. He has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, completing like over like 74% of his passes or something like that. It's absolutely insane what we've seen from him. So clearly you put him at number one. I would still put Caleb Williams right behind that. I really do appreciate the talent. I have questions about the coaching staff. That's one thing that I think has been holding them back a little bit as well. Sneaky Matt Eberflus hot seat. I think we should probably watch out for that as we get towards the end of the season. But I still love the talent. I love the ability. I love a lot of things about Caleb Williams. And that's not to discredit Drake Maye, who would be the third quarterback, and that's where he was in the NFL draft last spring. There's a lot of talent in this quarterback class. And to me, that's what's going to be fascinating. Historically, the quarterbacks, you get like one, and that's really, if you're lucky in these classes right now. And I know the records don't show it for Caleb Williams and Drake Maye, but it feels like all three of these quarterbacks are going to hit to varying degrees. Right now, certainly Jaden Daniels is number one, but 2 and 3, wherever you want to put Maye and Williams, I think that they're going to have strong futures in the NFL.
I was going to see if you were going to sneak Spencer Rattler into that top 3.
I don't think so.
Right, and Bo Nix would maybe be 4. You know, when you list these guys out, he's had a decent start to his season here with the Broncos. Final thing, Tyler, before we let you go, you know, the Patriots, I think they were a team that was seen around the NFL as one that would be a seller at the trade deadline, and we saw Joshua Uche get traded to the Chiefs. But I think there was a thought out there that maybe one of the Patriots wide receivers was going to be on the block and ultimately traded. That didn't happen. Why do you think that was the case?
I think it came down to price, and I'm right there with you. I think that was a clear signal here from the Patriots that, of course, you're talking like, you know, they're in line to get the number 1 overall pick. You're going to be sellers at a given deadline when you're in that type of position. But I think we also need to look at the market. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins went for a conditional 5th round pick. We had Deontay Johnson going for, I believe, a 6th rounder, and then like another pick was leaving Baltimore as well. So the market for wide receivers wasn't really that high. And so when we're talking about like KJ Osborne, whose name was really floated out about there, Kendrick Bourne even a little bit as well. they don't match up to those type of players that were moved. And so if we're talking about 6th round picks and conditional 5ths for a guy like Deontay Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins, you're talking about 7th round picks for KJ Osborne or something along those lines. So I just don't know if that makes sense for New England. I argue that it would. I know a 7th round pick is kind of just like a dart throw, but overall, he's not somebody that's part of your future. You might as well collect the asset. I'm with you on that. But I think that that's what really came down to the Elliott Wolf. Just the market wasn't there for them to make a clear and obvious move.
Yeah, so the team that they have is the team that they have. We'll see if they can beat the Bears on Sunday at Soldier Field. Tyler Sullivan, appreciate the time as always. Have a great weekend. And tonight on All Access, our sports director Steve Burton goes one-on-one with Ramondre Stevenson, and Drake Maye is in the players' spotlight. That's at 7 o'clock on WBZ. And then start your Sunday with Patriots Game Day here on WBZ and streaming on CBS News Boston. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock at Soldier Field. Quarter is on TV 38 right after the game.